This meeting of the Bellevue School District Board of Directors is now called to order at 4:32 p.m. And let us start with the roll call.
Phil Block.
Carolyn Watson,
Monica Webster.
Jay Norris,
Kelly Aramaki.
and Director Rogan is out of the country at the moment and will be back. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the introduction of the student.
Thank you, President Watson. I'm going to introduce my colleague, the principal of Tyee, Danielle Verada, to introduce two wonderful students from Tyee.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to welcome our two student speakers, Ted Yoon and Claire Zhang.
Okay, would you first please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. Great. So now we're going to have the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous lands of the Coast Salish peoples, who include the Duwamish, Muckleshoot, and the Snoqualmie peoples. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We are committed to our ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance.
Okay, thank you. So now it's time for the student update, which is when you get to tell us whatever you'd like to tell us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ted Yoon, and I'm an 8th grader at Tyee Middle School. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here today. It is an honor to be able to represent Tyee as the ASB president. This year, our ASB has worked on many projects, and recently we have been working on our MLK assembly. Our assembly is tomorrow afternoon, and during assemblies, we believe that it is very important to have the students engaged, but we've noticed that students are starting to get less and less engaged. Thus, starting last year, we invited the Black Stacks to make our MLK assembly more interactive. The Black Stacks is a Seattle band that was formed in 2009 to celebrate cultural expressions by stacking all forms of Black music and art. Their goals are to promote community building and activism through the sounds of soul. They teach our students about hope, justice for all people, and community through their music and words. So on this slide here is just a quick clip of our Black Stacks presentation from last year. That was our last year's presentation from our MLK assembly. And moving on to my next point. In 3rd grade, which was my first year here in BSD, there was one thing that seriously surprised me. There was so much food wasted. My friends left and right were just throwing away their food. And from clean, untouched fruit to unopened milk, everything was just going into the trash. Sitting right next to the trash can, I noticed a great amount of food wasted. So when Ms. Williams told me about the sustainability project, I jumped at the chance to help our school preserve our food. Our sustainability project collects uneaten and unopened fruits, milks, and bagged snacks. With these, the ASB and our leadership cleans the fruits and checks the expiration dates, then places them in the refrigerator. Students are able to go to the office to grab a quick snack during passing periods or after school. This project has allowed us as a school to stop from wasting food and allow hungry students to grab a snack. We've mentioned this in our newsletter, which we uploaded onto our website, and you can access through that QR code over there. On the screen, you can see our ASB secretary on the left washing the fruit with fruit wash, Then on the right, there's pictures of our collected fruit and our refrigerator. Outside of ASB, our wonderful PTSA is running a Lunar New Year Festival. The Lunar New Year Festival allows many students to come together and celebrate their cultures. The PTSA also allows student performances and booths, so this is a great opportunity for students to connect with others and show off their talents. On our slide here, we have a quick demo of the Lunar New Year Festival on the right, and on the left, there's a QR code that you can scan to get the Lunar New Year Festival details, so please come and join us. So that was just a quick little clip that we found that we had from last year's Lunar New Year Festival. And once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And also thank you for supporting Tyee in our great ambitions and dreams. In the long future, I would love to come back and be able to bring my children to Tyee and show off my pride. So thank you so much for your support for Tyee.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So next we have the acknowledgements. So this is Americans of Chinese Descent History Month, School Board Recognition Month. On the 20th, we had Martin Luther King Day, Jr. Day. On the 27th, it is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And on the 29th, it's Lunar New Year. Okay. So now I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion passes and the agenda is approved. Okay. Now we have the review of the consent agenda. So would anybody like to move to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. I know we have a norm of not discussing the consent agenda, but I'm going to, so normally if we have something controversial, we pull it out and talk about it in board business. But I would just like to say a few non-controversial things, which is I happened to meet the outdoor education people. What are they? Outdoor school that gave us some funding for some of our field trips. They had a table up at the WASDA conference, and I went up to them and I said, "Wow, that seems like a good idea, but it's too bad we're in budget cuts and we can't afford it." And they said, "We're already in some of your schools and we have grants." So in their honor, I stuck their sticker on my laptop today. And the other thing I wanted to say was I really appreciate this chart that came with the account signatures. I don't think I've seen anything like this before in my now 10 years on the school board. So I wanted to say thank you for that. All right. Now, any more comments?
Yeah, I do want to comment because on the same thing, it was great to see that our schools got, I think, a total of $180,000 in grants towards their the middle school trips to Arkyla this year. And so that's really great. It's awesome that all those schools were able to be supported by that program. So it's really wonderful to give those students a chance. And it looks like at least one of the schools, maybe the students are able to go without having to pay any fees. So that's really amazing.
Okay. With that said, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. And the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. Okay, now it's time for the superintendent update.
Great, thank you so much. Let's go ahead. I want to start off by just saying kudos to our students for leading some amazing celebrations of Dr. King and his life this past week and this week. Just hearing from the Tyee ASB president, Ted, talk about how they're trying to celebrate and honor Dr. King's legacy is inspiring. These are just a few pictures of of kids from all around all of our schools. We're just really proud of them because it takes a lot of time and effort for them to put these things together, and they do such an incredible job. And they really ground us in that idea of Dr. King's beloved community. Even with what Ted had shared about Tyee, talking about honoring Dr. King, bringing in African-American culture and excellence into the school, but also through the environmental sustainability efforts and making sure that they're not wasting food and taking care of people who are hungry. That is all part of that vision of beloved community where people care about each other and there is no hunger, poverty, or hatred. And so proud of the kids and of the celebrations that are happening across the district. Related to that, in the newsletter that we're sending out today, I talk a little bit about the beloved community and how in Bellevue, we really ascribe to being the beloved community where we care for one another, particularly those who are marginalized. And I do have kind of a section in my letter that talks about our kids and families who may be experiencing fear or uncertainty because of their immigration status. And so I just wanted to call out that as a beloved community, we take care of all of our kids. We are committed to educating all of our kids. And in my letter, I explain we have a board procedure, policy procedure that guides how we work with or not immigration agencies, and it's very clearly articulated. And then today, Chris Rakedahl, the superintendent for the state of Washington, has put out some guidance for schools about that same topic. So I just wanted to mention that. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go testify before the Washington Senate Education Committee. And I'm there with Dr. Duran, who was the superintendent here in Bellevue and now is the superintendent in Highline. Concy Pedroza, the superintendent in the Tukwila School District. And then Rob, whose last name escapes me right now, is the CFO for Federal Way Public Schools. So between Federal Way, Highline, Bellevue, and Tukwila, we're very different districts, very different demographics, very different sizes, and yet we are all struggling with very similar issues of underfunding by the state. And so on the screen, you can see 4 Senate bills that we testified in favor of, 2 for special education, 1 for MSOCs, material supplies and operating costs, and then 1 for transportation. It was exciting to be there because everybody there was on the same page. Every educational organization, WASDA, WASBO, WASA, they're all there pushing for what we call the big 3. These 3 big areas are the Washington Education Association was there, the Washington State PTSA was there, but everybody in the state of Washington who cares about education are pushing for more funding, particularly in these 3 areas. And so I got to testify on behalf of the Bellevue School District and was proud to do that. Related to kind of our own local budget challenges, we are currently engaged in budget and spending reduction planning with our community. And I just wanted to kind of remind people of the timeline. I've been told that we need to kind of say these things over and over and over again. And so I also have this in my letter that's going out today. But in the month of January, when we came back from break, we spent a lot of time engaging the community. And so I have it in this little post-it that we've done 52 different listening sessions over the course of this month, listening to students, to staff, to families. We also put out a survey, which closes tomorrow. And so in my letter, I have a link to the survey if you haven't taken it yet, but we would love to get as much community input prior to me putting together a proposal to the school board about how we're going to balance our budget for next year. February 6th, then, I'm going to be submitting a proposal at the school board meeting on the 25-26 spending reduction plan. That'll be the first opportunity for the board to look at it, for the public to see it. And then from February 6th through the beginning of March will be a comment period. We're going to give the community, again, another opportunity to comment, to ask questions about the proposed spending reductions for next year, of which we have to cut about $16 million from our spending. Then on March 6th, we're going to hold a special board meeting, which will be focused specifically on public comment. So we want to give the public an opportunity to weigh in before we make a very impactful decision. And then on March 13th, at our regular school board meeting, the school board will get to vote on the spending reduction plan. I put there also April 27th is the end of the legislative session. And that's an important date because that's when we will know if we're going to get additional funding from the state for education. And so we are going to, while we're planning to reduce spending, we are going to be working very hard to advocate for additional revenue from the state. The last thing I'll just mention in this timeline is tonight after this board meeting, we have a study session with the school board in which we will be talking about preliminary trends and themes that we're hearing from our community listening sessions. So the board will get a preview of what people are saying, what we're hearing, and then the school board will have an opportunity tonight to kind of develop some parameters that will help me in determining how to kind of plan for spending cuts. This is a really fun slide to talk about, but our most recent school board visit was to Newport High School, and we had a really incredible time. I'll just show on the top right, there's a picture of 4 of our board directors. Director Watson, I think, was over on the other side of the kitchen, but this is our culinary class at Newport. It was so fun. That's a picture of our board directors tasting the Wagyu steak. Was perfectly cooked. Was Wagyu on sale, I was reminded. On sale.
I wasn't there because I thought it was not cooked well enough.
It turned out to be perfect. Anyways, I'll just say our CTE programs in the district are quite incredible. And Newport High School, I mean, it's just, they're doing some amazing things, but their CTE programs are just out of this world. And so they were doing some planning because they were having some people from Ascend Steakhouse come the next day. So we were thrilled to be able to help them with their learning.
I said that wrong. I said that wrong. I didn't mean they didn't cook it well. I meant it wasn't well done.
Yeah, got it.
Really,
Right,
sorry.
right. You do like it filleted and then
Really
really well
cooked.
done. Right,
It's part of being immunocompromised.
got it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. And then the other pictures on there are just for fun, but in one of the classrooms, it was the Cisco class. That up there is their recipe for how to make it through the day. 4 heaping scoops of ground coffee and a 6-minute brew time in their little coffee brewers below. So we just thought it was funny because that's, I mean, clearly what gives these teachers energy to do some pretty incredible things. And then the bottom pictures are, they have 3 amazing assistant principals at Newport High School, and their tech specialist is an innovative person. He does all this incredible things, but he created 3 bobbleheads. I mean, you really can't see it, but that look just like them. I mean, using his 3D printer. And so, I mean, everybody at Newport is just running on all cylinders, being super creative, and they're really laser focused on, not laser focused, that's funny, the 3D printer. Anyways, on making sure the kids are enjoying, their education. The kids there work so hard. And so the team there are working hard to inject joy into the learning of the kids. So we were thrilled to be there. Oh, and that's it. That's the end of my update.
Okay, great. Thank you. And sorry for the interruptions. Okay, so now it's time for public comment. And I rely on Chief of Staff Harrison to kind of run the public comment, but I will summarize the guidelines as I always do. Wow, you put it in smaller print now. But anyway, okay, so we like getting public comment. We usually only have 20 minutes in a meeting. Each person gets 2 minutes. And you can always give written documentation to our board secretary. That'll be in the official record. And then we just want to reiterate about the standard of civility that we impose on ourselves and would like you to follow, which means comments should not be libelous or slanderous, an unwarranted invasion of privacy. They shouldn't be obscene or indecent, and should not violate any regulation of the FCC. So they should not violate school district policy or procedure or be harassment, intimidation, bullying, discrimination. We should not be inciting lawful acts on school premises or violating lawful school regulations, and don't create a material and substantial disruption of the orderly operation of the board meeting. So with that said, we'll have Mr. Harrison bring up our public commenter.
It's a fairly easy task tonight, President Watson. We have one public commenter registered. She is in person. Julie Seibel, come on up. And I believe that's all. Monica? Okay. Welcome, Julie.
Okay. I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to address the future of BSD programs and spending reductions. I think that most of us are in agreement that the state is not adequately funding basic education and that Bellevue School District has been put into the position of making really hard budgetary cuts in the future. I'm deeply concerned that these cuts will fall heavily in the area of supporting student well-being. Why, you may ask? Because it's one of the last areas of focus that has been added to the budget. It's easier to say that we didn't need this 5 years ago and maybe we don't really need it now. I urge both the district administration and school board members to look beyond the longevity of any program within the district and to take a really hard look at how the program is serving the current needs of students, both the positives and the negatives. Students' educational experiences are not limited to academics. BSD recognized this in 2017 when piloting the Mental Health Assistance Team, or MHAT. Focusing on student well-being within schools provides the district, students, teachers, and families the ability to support students in an environment that they spend most of their day. A student who is struggling does not have the full capacity to engage in their education. And without the specially trained staff of nurses, counselors, psychologists, social workers, MHAT, behavior specialists, etc., it falls on the classroom teachers to fill student needs. This potentially impacts the academic focus for all students in a classroom. A student who is struggling has a ripple effect within a learning community. When the proposed budget cuts are released, many community members will vocalize their concerns. Keep in mind that there will be voices that you will not hear. Public comment about the benefits and impact of MHAT will most likely be rare. Please understand that this is not from a lack of importance of MHAT to students and families. Talking about one's mental health or the mental health crisis is very difficult even with close and trusted people, let alone publicly. So I sit here today to say that the MHAT and programs that support student well-being save lives and give students the opportunity to thrive in Bellevue School District and beyond.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is the end of public comment, and we're going on to our report on artificial intelligence.
Great. Maybe I'll just do a quick introduction. Tom Dunwald, Keith Onstad, many people know them. They have been leaders in educational technology in Bellevue for many, many years together, and I'm thrilled to turn it over to them to have them present on a very interesting topic, which is artificial intelligence in education, specifically in the Bellevue School District.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Armalki and school board directors. We're excited to do a brief presentation related to our AI report, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Good start.
When you have technology in your title, technology usually.
There we go. Welcome.
Okay. So I'm part of a group of educational leaders that does a lot of things, many of them kind of behind the scenes, but we support educational technology. We're liaison with our technology team. We have led and continue to lead new implementations of technology. We focus a lot on how our end users experience technology, how our students engage with it, and really work to develop learning experiences so that our educators, our students, and our families can use technology effectively as part of their learning experience. With Bellevue, I also play an active role in negotiating basically all of our instructional technology vendor agreements. We're always working to get the best deal for the district and make sure that our vendors are meeting our needs. The assessment part, oversee advanced placement, testing, APSI, and also all of the other state assessments, those kinds of things. And really, our goal is always to provide the structures and support that our students, families, and educators need to be successful. And we're here to talk about AI tonight and why in schools. And really, our vision for AI, I think, aligns with what we've learned at national level, at the state level, is to use AI as a tool to intensify the human element in education, allowing teachers to invest more time in direct interactions with students, and for students to have equitable access to coaching support and to experience a more personalized education for them. And then we also share a quote from Chris Rockdale, our superintendent of public instruction. And one of the things that we've done over the last few years is assemble an educational technology community advisory team. And what we've worked, and there's always opportunities for others to join, I'll put that out there. But what we've endeavored to do is engage different perspectives, make sure we're capturing the student voice, working with educators, but also looking to the outside, either community members who have expertise in technology, as well as others that can help us learn. Because with AI in particular, you know, there's a lot of change happening very rapidly, and we're working to do this in a thoughtful way, but we also want to do it in a way that gives access to the tools and resources now, and with the hope that we're going to benefit and support our educators, students, and families. I'm going to turn it over to Keith for a little bit of a demo.
I wanted to actually show you kind of a couple of the early platforms that we're using with educators and with students to start exploring how AI can be leveraged in the classroom. And I want to start with our first tool that in the report you can kind of see some of the usage. It's quite popular with educators. And this is kind of a low floor, high ceiling entry point. Educators, when they go to ChatGPT, they see a blank box and they wonder, like, what can this do for me? Magic School is kind of laid out with scaffolding for educators and for students to see what are some of the ways that artificial intelligence could be useful for my learning. So there's a variety of tools laid out in here, and I'll show you a couple just live. Common thing with early literacy is creating decodables. These are sound pattern books, support early literacy development. And so an example is a teacher can say, well, I want to create a decodable with the S sound. And Magic School will spit that out, and I can go ahead and copy or print it right there. But maybe I've got a student that's really into sports. Make this more about sports. And the AI will rewrite that short decodable for that kinder student with that theme to hopefully connect more and be a more engaging prompt. There's a variety of other tools from a presentation generation tool. Again, you can see scaffolding here in terms of what kinds of things would you prompt it in order to generate something for you. You can always click on an exemplar to see an example. And what's nice about Magic School is you can take that output, and the training that comes with Magic School always emphasize reviewing the output and then asking that presentation to refine it, add questions, or create more interaction based on what your feedback is. So I might say create more opportunities for students to discuss in groups the phases and use academic language. And we'll get another draft out of that, and you'll see some more teaching strategies embedded when I prompt it better. So not only, in addition to the kind of these educator-facing tools, there's a variety of student-facing tools as well. And when you look at the student tools, you'll notice that Write My Entire Essay For Me is not one of these tools. But this is kind of leveraging like a realistic scenario of writing feedback or expanding on an original idea, a debate partner. And so again, we can always ask it for, I want to design a service project. I'm a 10th grader. We can get an idea. And again, using this as a thought partner. Another tool, and I'm seeing my time whittle down, is kind of writing feedback. For generations, some people have had access to support with their writing and others haven't, and AI does present an equity tool here. In addition to Magic School, we also have Colleague AI. This is a new tool with a research grant partnership from the University of Washington that potentially holds promise for higher quality outputs. And so in an example, a conversation with their AI chatbot, asking it to create a quadratic modeling lesson that's based on the student store, something my kids might be interested in. I can ask it to generate sample data tables that I might use in a class activity. I could say I want more noise in that data table and get a little bit more noise in the data. And I can even ask to draft materials that I might ask students to use in class. So I hope that kind of helps sort of illuminate some of the possibilities with what these platforms can offer in terms of educational technology and making things better. Tom?
And just the other thing to kind of emphasize, and I think you saw an example of that, is that historically, teachers haven't had like an assistant to help co-plan, help develop things, to do some of the work that's non-instructional. And if we can help our educators be more efficient and effective in their grading, in their planning processes, those kinds of things, we think there's an opportunity that increases the time and energy that they can devote directly to supporting and working with our students.
And so that kind of gets also at, from the student perspective of AI can potentially serve as an equity tool, providing that personalized feedback and support that some students have access through, whether a paid private tutor or a family member or older sibling. This has the potential to provide that same resource to everyone. That also, on the flip side, results in AI does have the potential to amplify our responsibility to make learning authentic for students, that they would want to bring their personal voice and their original ideas to the table. And so that accelerates the need for making sure our learning tasks and what we're asking kids to do on a daily basis is perceived as meaningful to them. Which brings us to another kind of emerging topic. This is an example of an AI literacy curriculum that we've used pieces of in some experimental phase. AI literacy is defined as understanding how it works, what are the benefits and risks, such as bias or misinformation, and how do students think critically and about their use and responsible use of AI. In some of our early piloting of this, especially with digital discovery students, this was a highly engaging topic for students to discuss, unpacking the ethics of use, the quality of generated outputs. Students had a lot of thoughts about, and it seems like a logical place to integrate AI literacy, having a tool that students can actually use AI with in a safe way to start unpacking how is this going to impact my life, my education, and the way I collect information.
Okay, and go to the last slide. Really what we want to make sure of is that we're just thoughtful about the broader implications of human-centered AI in education. We believe it does have a potential to create a whole new line of skills for our students to master, will help us shift in a positive way how we approach learning in different disciplines. And we really believe that it's going to help us better meet the needs of individual learners, especially those who haven't been successful and need something different or more to be successful, meet standard, those kinds of things. And we do want to close with, the math teacher protest in 1966 over calculators. Part of it is how we help our students use technology in a thoughtful manner that demonstrates their understanding of what if it is a tool, and also how to use it with a great deal of integrity. So thank you for your time.
Okay, great. So it's time for board discussion. Would anybody like to lead off? Okay, this is the downside for me not rolling the die and just calling on someone. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I know that we asked lots and lots of questions on Monday, so I just appreciate you incorporating that information in here for us and for our community today. I have lots of curiosity around AI, as I suspect most of us do here. And for the sake of discussion today, one of the things that I was thinking about was algorithm monitoring in our schools and kind of what that could look like in terms of how it intersects with disciplinary action potentially for our students and what the implications could be. And I know that we're still exploring kind of what it's going to look like, but I think that it's important that we have a specific plan in place prior to any disciplinary action of students related to AI technology or around like misuse and things like that, especially during the implementation phases, is going to be really important. Secondly, we're learning a lot every day, right? It's constantly evolving. And I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence around understanding what supports are needed for all students throughout their experience here, regardless of what AI tools that we decide to use. And really just keep a close eye on what might be identified as a misuse of technology or other violations that are driven by AI within any of our protected classes from our students on the margins. I've heard several stories about the impact that AI can have both positively and negatively on students with 504s, IEPs, or students who have visual impairments, disabilities, or neurodivergent conditions, or our students who are English learners. And so it's important that we're considering the unintended consequences as we continue to take care of our kids and evolve. And then the last thing that I just wanted to share was I was reading an article in Forbes, and it said that generative AI could add the equivalent of $2.6 trillion to a $4.4 trillion a year area, right, to the global economy by 2040 here in the US, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. And it made me think about our STEM offerings and how relevant that opportunity is for our students in supporting our students who want to pursue careers in AI as a programmer. And I think Bellevue College, offers some options as well. And I just think that it's great that we're able to offer that opportunity here. And then perhaps kids can go to Bellevue College, right, and continue that pathway right here in our own backyard. So I think those are all the things that I have right now. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, who's next?
Thank you. So first off, I really appreciate this presentation. I know it's something we asked for, and it's great to see the work and effort you guys have put into bringing this material to our classrooms and thoughtful approaches to how to integrate it into our curriculum. Kudos to you guys in helping bring that forward. Some of my comments today are going to be similar to the comments I had on Monday. Sorry about that. One of the things I mentioned on Monday is, who is doing AI in the classroom well. And one of the things that I noticed, and we talked a little bit about the people being on the cutting edge sometimes get cut. And one of the things I noticed in doing some additional research was that LA tried to be on the cutting edge, and they got badly cut trying to pursue an AI chatbot. They invested $3 million and then had to abandon their program. So looking at some of those examples, I think is really prudent. There's a huge amount of growth in this area, and there are going to be some missteps. I do want to emphasize one of the points that I definitely heard from Monica or Director Webster earlier, and that is that AI has bias built into it. It knows what it's been taught to look at. So it's drawing information from a limited set of things, and intentionally or not, that set of things has biases built into it. And just because it goes through a computer doesn't mean that the bias has been spontaneously removed. And so we need to be conscious and conscientious about that. I'm also becoming increasingly concerned that AI is now generating information that AI is then drawing on. And that people may learn very quickly how to insert false or misleading information into the data sets that AI is drawing from. And so we just need to be aware that we have a tool that has flaws. It has the potential to trust everything it's given, and not everything it's given is necessarily has the same value or utility. So that makes me think that we need to be thoughtful about how we define how we want students and teachers to use this, and that can be an evolving thing as time goes on, because as I think we've all seen, the power of AI is moving pretty quickly. I see my own words being translated spontaneously into Spanish here. That's something I couldn't have imagined 5 or 10 years ago. But there are a lot of opportunities there around how to do it. I see some clear pros. The comment about how it can be an equity tool to provide opportunities for timely feedback and consistent feedback that could maybe assist teachers, but also assist students in getting that feedback immediately. It has this ability to make people more efficient by connecting us to information on our own websites that help us navigate bureaucracies. My understanding is AI is great at that. It's also a tool that our students are going to have to engage with, now and into their careers. So we need to be training them about that, but also that it's not a static thing, that it's going to continue to evolve throughout their time here and beyond. So I love the AI literacy. I think that that's going to be a critical thing. And I think it's probably exciting for students because it's not settled. We don't have all the answers. And so they're able to engage in that active discussion where it's not like, oh no, parents have all the answers. We don't know. There are questions we haven't thought about and things we haven't encountered. I know the math teachers protesting against calculators is a little bit humorous today, but I remember that they did a thing when I was in second or third grade where they had us race again. I give half the kids calculators and half of us just sitting there with a pencil and paper, and they had us race against each other and see at what point you could be faster. And the kids with pencil and paper were faster consistently because we didn't have to punch keys. We didn't have to do nearly as much. You're just doing memory recall. And so we can forget that sometimes that, computers can be really handy and really alluring and somewhat addictive, but they're not necessarily always better. The thing you didn't mention but was in your report is also that chatbots. It looks like a great tool to make some content that can otherwise seem kind of dry and out of place really interactive and awesome. So those are some really exciting pros. I think we talked some about some of the risks, and we need to be very cognizant of those risks associated with AI. So in thinking about the plan going forward, we need to be careful not to treat AI just as a fancy piece of software because it's much more than that, and it can be kind of all-encompassing. I feel that I am concerned that AI may shift some of the fundamental incentives for learning and mastery targets. It may make it like, well, I just know how to get that information rather than I know how to create that information, rather than I know how to be creative and think of 3 different ways to create that information. If I can just ask a computer to do it, I know a lot of kids who are lazy who will be happy to do that. I know a lot of adults who are lazy who will be happy to do that. I talk to my kids sometimes about a smart tool versus a dumb tool. And I use as the example of a dumb tool, a table saw. It's got one job to cut. It doesn't care what it's cutting, whether it's wood, metal, or your hand. It's going to do that job and it's going to do it very efficiently. I'm not quite sure yet what the job of AI is. And I know it will do that job, but I don't know what job it's doing. And that job is kind of variable from person to person. So I don't really know if it's a smart tool, despite some people's efforts to portray it as a smart tool, or a dumb tool where it's just going to do it regardless of my interest in having it do those steps. And the example I would give is creative writing. Will it try to supplant the creativity of students and make it so that our students aren't able to think about how to create creative writing as much? And then I'll just close with, I think we don't even know where AI is going in the next 5 years. The growth and capabilities are clearly exponential. As we hear today, there's a lot of interest and major investments in making more AI growth and finding the role for people in a world, in a post-AI world, and imagining that is going to be a challenge, and making sure that the students understand why we're teaching them mastery for the topics we are targeting for mastery, I think is going to be really important going forward. Thanks.
Okay, would you like to go next or should it be me? You can go next.
Okay. I'll start with thank you for the presentation and also the report. It was very insightful. What is the word I want to use? Eye-opening in certain ways. There are some questions I asked on Monday that I don't see the answer for, so I'm going to repeat it here. And which is, what is the actual cost to our district, especially given that right now we're on a heavy budget cut situation. And so I see a great value in this. I could see how it could really help our students who need the extra support and individualizing education for our, very broad and wide spectrum of learners. But I am also concerned about the cost component and curious to know if you shopped around, what does that look like and what the variance is in as far as all the different tools that there are. And when I was at the National Board conference, one of the seminars I sat in was on AI, and it was really interesting in how they were looking at, based upon all the research and all the impacts it was having on AI is having on job at this point, or I guess at that point. And it was pretty intense. And there was a lot of conversation of, well, what does that mean? What are the tools that we teach our kids? And I'm curious to, what are the possible harms, tools in both ends? And I'm curious to know whether or not we thought about how this will impact our students, especially in the social emotional sense, as we see the overwhelming of technology has impact on our kids. How will this be a positive, negative, or will it be a net neutral kind of situation? If there is any kind of evidence out there that's already floating that we could glean from, it would be good to know. I'd love the demo of how you could really personalize. I was sitting with a group of high school students yesterday, and one of the conversation was sense of belonging and how they do or don't feel they belong in the classroom, and it's simple things of incorporating them into that lesson. And so it's wonderful to see how it could make it really easy for teachers when they don't feel that they have that time. And, being really culturally relevant and as well as being really equity minded. I am also concerned about the disciplinary action component. As I mentioned on Monday, the AI varies significantly, and if you're using it just as an edit tool versus you're writing a whole thing. And so I would love to make sure that as we actually it's already rolled out, kids are using it, what are we doing to negate the possible negative harm that we may unintentionally put on students because the teachers aren't aware. And so how can we make sure that we're communicating all the information we need to regarding the tools that's out there, the spectrum that there is, the way they engage, and not to say that to give kids a bye for not doing their work, but also not harming the ones who are trying to use it in a more positive way. One of the things AI makes me think about how this gives students a lot of information, content, and also makes me wonder, what are the skill sets that we, with AI and its evolution, and looking forward, I'm always kind of looking, okay, what are the skills that we need to start working on to make sure that we create more value for them when we have new technology that may take away some of the job skills or that you really need, or we need now, but may not need in the future. And made me think about what is that we need to kind of maybe double down on, actually, which is EQ. That our social skills, our interpersonal skills. And those are the things that I have not seen evidence in AI that's really impacted strongly, and how that it may take a while. And so I wonder, along with the social emotional, skill set, that we need to make sure we are working on our students' ability to communicate. In fact, I heard a lot about that at Valve yesterday as I was as I took a group of high school students getting a tour, and they had a great chance to talk to technologists, and they said, well, communication skills, that is valuable. So we look at AI and looking at this, I'm kind of wondering, what are the holes that we need to really address? Misinformation, and how are we teaching our kids to decipher as they interact with, whether it's AI or honestly, any information on internet? How are we doing the due diligence to make sure they know how to, as they engage in all these different areas, including AI, how are they recognize the information is correct or not, and are we teaching them how to make sure that they're double checking to make sure it is a fact? And then the last thing is, how are we safeguarding our kids? I think I asked this question on Monday, is that our kids are going to be kids. They're going to try, they're going to push, and they're going to challenge the system, whatever the system it is. And so with introduction to AI, they're doing it anyway. How do we make sure we're, whatever tool we are opening our kids to, that we're keeping their personal information as well as the things that they write private. That's it. Thank you.
All right. So as the last person, many of the things I wanted to say have already been touched on, but I'm just going to add my viewpoint. And the first thing I'd like to say is that I think your vision is excellent. And for people who don't have the documentation in front of them, the vision is to use AI as a tool to intensify the human element in education, allowing teachers to invest more time in direct interactions with students, and for students to have equitable access to coaching and support personalized for them. That's excellent. I wish every aspect of our society would write a similar vision. However, my fear is that our society may use this technology to reduce opportunities for our students. And so I think that this is a big transformation on the horizon. We don't know what the timeline is for it. I was thinking it was moving very fast. I heard recently maybe it's not as fast as we thought. Who knows? But it will eventually hit us, and it will be fast. So I really appreciate that you're trying to prepare our students for this new world. And I think there's a lot of caveats that have been pointed out by my fellow board members, and I'll just go over a few that resonate with me. The bias that the AIs have been trained on the data, is basically the entire World Wide Web, plus stuff. I would like, and I think you mentioned that we are going to be teaching kids about how to spot misinformation, which is a tool they needed for social media and is taught in some other countries, and we need to really get on with that. I will point out that the way it teaches them to write right now is kind of, for lack of a better word, pedestrian, meaning it's correct, it's clear, but it's uninspired and sometimes uninteresting to read. So I would mention that. I think we are going to have to really look in to revise what plagiarism means and how we define cheating. My little book here has a whole chart on that. But you have to go through is it plagiarism if it corrects your grammar? Is it plagiarism if it gives you ideas? Is it plagiarism if it rewrites your whole essay? And there's a spectrum. And so we're going to have to decide for our district what that's going to be. I'm also very concerned about guardrails on students' data, on the data that the students generate and how these tools are going to maybe capture and use our students' data. I'm also concerned about the algorithms. And I was thinking, this is because a company that I used to work for, I used to have access to the code that ran their human resources system. And I can tell you for sure, people from human resources would tell you things that weren't true when you looked at the code. And so that's when I'm afraid here that with these artificial intelligence, I don't think that we're going to even be able to read the code. Per se, we don't know what these algorithms are. So I think we need to somehow at least have that, be on guard for that. And then one thing that, I mentioned before, I would like us to refine what is the board's role in outside partnerships, especially when we're partnering with big tech companies and data usage and those kinds of issues. So I want us to think about that a little bit more. And then the other thing that we haven't mentioned, I read an interesting article on the environmental impact of AI. And you probably know that Microsoft has bought 3 Mile Island and is revamping the nuclear plant that almost melted down in the 80s. And so there was an article that did a side-by-side comparison of the amount of energy used for an ordinary Google search versus an AI query. And it's a huge difference. But what we can do as end users is be mindful that not everything needs to be an AI search. If you just want a piece of data, you can use the less energy intensive things. So that's another thing people might not be aware of. But I'd say overall, we're on the right track. We've got to do this. We can't just put our, heads in the ground and think that we're not going to confront this, because our students need to be prepared. And I'm glad to see that we're working on that. Okay, Dr. Aramaki.
Just a couple closing thoughts. Thank you for the presentation. And I think this is just the beginning. I think this is just kind of our beginning intro to talking about this. And this is probably something we need to bring back on a pretty regular basis, because everything has changed from Monday to today. So, I think it'll be good to kind of keep the board up to date. And I think it is a good point about student data and forming partnerships with people to think about what the board's role is, because that is something that is very important to our families as well. So I think between John and Tom, if you guys could kind of work on that, at least it would be good to start with to clarify what is the board's role, and even looking at some of the agreements that we form, with the University of Washington or whatever, to do some of these partnership things. The second thing I'll just mention is one of the reasons why we're partnering with the University of Washington is because they have a focus on equity and they are trying to mitigate bias. They are training their chatbots specifically so that is for student audience and teacher audience, and they're doing a lot of the research behind to see. So the algorithms we are not going to know, but they have people who are going to know. And so because we do not want to be out there on our own, just trying to chat GPT our students' education. So that's one thing I just want to mention. The other thing I'll say is AI. I think it's a good point for us to talk about discipline because we've heard a lot of stories, whether it's in K-12 or it's in upper education, about kids getting punished for using just everyday accessible AI tools. Because the truth is, artificial intelligence could level the playing field for kids with significant disabilities, for example, or kids that are learning English as a second language. AI will literally bring them up to parity with other people. And why wouldn't we want that? Why would we punish people because they couldn't generate it from scratch in the exact same way? So if a child can use a tool to produce the same thing as somebody else, there are some things that are amazing about accessibility and inclusion. So I think that's something important for us to think about. The other thing I'll just mention is librarians, they have always said that we need to teach more like media literacy. But I think looking at AI literacy, like this is something for our librarians to, again, champion for us. And then my last comment is, I think it probably would be good for us to develop some do's and don'ts because it is in some ways cutting edge work and teachers are going to be trying things and we can't keep up or streamline what people are doing because it's so new. But what we can do is provide some do's and don'ts as we learn them. Do this with AI. Do not do this with AI because there are some things that we wouldn't want any classroom teachers to do that would harm children. And we probably should kind of keep a running do's and don'ts of AI. So that's something that we probably can work on as well as teachers kind of are testing and trying things out. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, great. That was a good discussion, I think. Okay, so now we're on to board business, and you'll note that it says 0 minutes. So we'll be done with board business. And we're now on to director discussion, which is slated to go till 6 o'clock. We maybe won't go that long. We'd like to hear, we don't always get to do this, and let's talk with 5 minutes or less for each person, depending on what they need to say. Okay, so who would like to lead off? Okay.
All right. Yeah. So President Watson and I attended the Bellevue High School MLK Assembly, and it was just so much fun, just engaging with the kids, and just hearing like the poems and a little bit of education. And they got to dance and the bands, and it was just so nice. And I just, I love being in community and being in the buildings with students, which I don't get a whole lot of time to do anymore. So I was just really grateful that we got the invitation. So thank you to the Bellevue BSU leaders for inviting us to that. It's really fun. Also visited Newport High School and really had a good time with those kids over there and parents and staff. And I think we ran over session with the students because, they just had so much to share. And, it was just nice that they were so open and willing to have those conversations and suggestions for us. So shout out to Newport for their participation. And then the last thing I have is the Rainer Athlete fundraising event is going to be at Hidden Valley Field, where it usually is. We just got informed that yesterday at the meeting, but they didn't have the time. So it's typically at 6:30, but they're going to make sure, double check to make sure that that is still going to be the time. So that's in April. I sent you all the date for that on the 26th. So we usually attend that event. So just make sure it's marked on your calendars. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Jane? Okay, Director RS.
Okay. Well, I'll give it a shout out to Newport High School for having us at on their campus and also sharing their amazing new facility and also the students showing us how things work and and the testing their food. That was right. Yes. Right. I do appreciate when students show up and share their thoughts with us and at every school and including at Newport. And it just, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, how can I do things better? And it's so nice to hear their voice and their um, you know, their true, honest feedback. So I so much appreciate that. I had a chance to, well, I attended the Youth Link meeting yesterday, and they were working on, of all the things, sense of belonging. And survey they had their peers take, and I think there were about 113 students who participated. And it was quite interesting to see, and I'll have to share it with you all at some point. But what they did say is our panorama is too complicated, and we need to make it simpler. I also had a chance to, well, I shouldn't say chance, but attended the FRN meeting, the Federal Relations Network for Advocacy at this national level, and they're getting ready to launch in a couple of weeks to figure out what are the priorities. They're focusing on special education as always, trying to figure out, okay, how else can we actually make them here at the federal level, as well as looking at meeting with all the different departments. I think there's 3 on the agenda so far, with possibly meeting with labor, looking at what are the possibilities and ways we could partner. And then I also wanted to mention, as part of being a mentor for robotics, I had a chance to, or I should say, one of our community members opened up his workspace, which is at Valve, to bring in kits. For those who don't know what Valve is, they make video games, and they also have a Steam platform which they host. And these kids are pretty excited about that particular thing. But more importantly, they had an amazing opportunity to have conversations with people who work there. And it was interesting how the focus for all the technology and the coding and everything that they do, one of the things that they really pointed over and over is the importance to be able to find problems around you, being able to name that, and then looking for solutions, but more importantly, communication skills. And which I thought was kind of interesting how they all kind of collided with today's presentation. But it is something I had lost count of how many times they said communication skills, communication skills, communication skills. So just, something from the professional world shared to our kids. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, now it's between me and Director Block. All right, I'm going to go next. And first, I'll say something upbeat and positive. I really enjoyed the MLK assembly, and what I think was what do you want to call it? Not the killer app realization or whatever that made it so good was that they just realized that none of us have attention spans anymore, and they just kept it zipping along, and they would just cut between like a little bit of history and a little bit of music and a little bit this and so I just really, really enjoyed it. And so now I'm going to go on to something that is not as bright and happy, which is I had a really rough day a week ago. Was it a week ago, Tuesday, when we went to Newport, and then I went to Bellevue High, and then I went to Odell. Newport was kind of hard because I was directed to come into the building, and I confronted a cliff coming from the handicap space into the building. I found myself standing on a thing where I had to go down a stair or a relatively steep ramp that would also hurt me. And I'm shouting to the people in the main office, help! And if I'd come in the back, it might have gone a little better. So I'm going to speak right now on behalf of Americans with disabilities, because this is just rough. So that happened. And then I went to Bellevue High, where everything was nice and flat. I didn't try to access the second floor, but I had no problem getting into the building, getting over to the gym, doing everything I wanted to do in the building. And I also noticed that they had really nice chairs in their, I guess it's the cafeteria area, because the other thing I really object to is what I call those The social exclusion chairs that we have in Sammamish and some of our middle schools where only a set number of kids can sit. They can't make any room for anybody who's a little socially anxious who comes to the group later. That person gets turned away. And I don't know if you heard him say it, but the kid at Newport in the wheelchair said, I can't sit at those tables. There's no place for his wheelchair to come up and join a group of anybody at those tables. So I really hope that someday we regret the decision to buy those and get something else. And when I said something to somebody, they said they're much easier for the adults to put away at night or something. And I just can't stand it. But anyway, so then all that happened. And I feel like it's not okay to complain unless you have some ideas. So here are the ideas. Please have facilities warn everyone who has reserved a room in a building without access when the elevator is broken and suggest that they move the meeting to the first floor. Because what happened to Odell was I tried to go to the meeting on Tuesday night and I could not access the meeting. The only elevator in the building was completely broken and apparently has been since the bomb cyclone fritzed out when the power came on. So 3 out of 4 elevators at Newport High are broken, and the kid who uses a wheelchair doesn't have access to a whole wing, but maybe that's okay because he doesn't need to go there. But you don't know when someone's going to break a leg and have to temporarily be in a wheelchair or use a knee scooter or use a rollator or be on crutches. So I think we should stockpile that. If there's some known elevator parts that you just can't get from a supplier, maybe when we can get them, we should stockpile a few so they don't get blown out and we have to wait months for anyone to have access. I would enjoin you to study access paths for the mobility impaired with the eyes of the mobility impaired. Give elevator passes to impacted students, trust them. So, you're always like, if you have to come in, when I can't get into Sammamish and they say, oh, don't worry, just call the front desk and we'll come down and get you. That would be really wearing on a kid who had to do that every day. It's wearing enough, it doesn't make you feel like you belong. You're like this exception processing thing. And just be careful because the architect designed access has to happen under the American with Disabilities Act, but then you seal it off for security reasons. We've got to think through this. And I will say, they're like, oh, you have ramps. Well, ramps don't always cut it. I mean, if I had a chance, I'd just redo Newport, but we already just did Newport. But I talked to a parent who said when her student was using a rollator, a thing to help you walk, Newport was a nightmare for that student. Even with the ramps, it's not so easy. Crutches, ramps, knee scooters, ramps, rollators, ramps. So this is my request to you all to try to take some, I know we can't tear down the building and start again, but can we take some of these proactive measures to at least fix things, warn things, find some solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, powerful stuff there. I think a lot of us were very taken by the comment about a student in a wheelchair that 3 out of the 4, or maybe 2 out of the 3 elevators at Newport were out of function. I understand that the bomb cyclone appears to have been one of the major contributors. That was a predicted event, and we should consider whether or not sensitive electronics like elevators should be shut down when those events are coming, or if they should have a universal power supply, which is a standard procedure for sensitive computer equipment, to help protect them from those sorts of events. That there may be preventative measures that we don't have in place, but we should consider for those. Seems to me those bomb cyclone things happen once every 5 years, so maybe we'll be lucky for the next 4 years. But I do want to touch back on something that Dr. Aramaki said, just to reemphasize it, that maybe we can reemphasize to the public that the survey is closing soon for the budget conversations, and put that out on our social media channels and whatnot to make sure that they know that there's a specific deadline for closing that survey. I spent part of I think it was last week, at the Environmental Sustainability Working Group. It's great to see the amazing progress they're making. They now have their own Instagram outreach page, which I encourage people to follow and join. That is one of the tools that they'll be using to both promote the various sustainability groups at all the schools, as well as to do reporting and help identify goals and support the achievement of those. The other thing that they're focusing on is the improvement plans, trying to come up with more ideas and implementation methods, removing barriers to implementing those. Also went to, this may have been 2 weeks ago, the Legislative Advocacy Workshop, which was held in CTEC. That's a great opportunity for us to coordinate across districts and make sure that we're in alignment. Obviously, really appreciate the hard work that you're doing, Dr. Aramaki and Olympia. Also want to recognize that we have, out of our 6 representatives that represent Bellevue School District, we have 3 new ones in this month. Just yesterday, I think, Janice Zahn was appointed to the 41st District Legislative seat 2 days ago. It just made the paper yesterday. Sorry, I didn't only read that. Senator Vandana Slaughter and Representative Osman Salahuddin were appointed at the beginning of the month in the 48th to replace the representative replaced Vandana Slaughter, but Vandana Slaughter replaced the Kuderer who moved on to the insurance position. So we have some teaching and some outreach needs there to help bring them into understanding where we are with the district, and that's a great opportunity, as well as to coordinate with our neighboring districts who share some of those same representatives, our opportunities there. I want to recognize we're coming to the end of the first semester, celebrate that. That's a big deal for a lot of students. It's also a stressful time for a lot of students. I was at a PTSA meeting last night, and the teachers were asking about funding so that they could buy candy to hand out to all the students in the hallways, and hopes to try to do some things to release pressure. I went to a college where we had an all-campus scream. So that was their motive of stress relief, was that there was a designated time when everybody could go outside and scream as loud as they wanted to. It's kind of cathartic to know you're not alone. It's also been great to see the tremendous number of school events and activities that we're now getting notification of. A lot of stuff around the Lunar New Year going on right now, and a lot of other events coming up, celebrating various programs within the schools, a lot of booster type events coming up, which is really exciting. And then I want to close, when we talk about budget, I can't avoid mentioning that one of the greatest opportunities to support the Bellevue School District is through the Bellevue Schools Foundation. It's funding donations to that organization are a very efficient way to support the Bellevue School District. They're having their Spring for Schools event on April 19th at the Westin Hotel. It's a dinner and auction event this year. Registration and sponsorship opportunities are available now on their website. So those are great opportunities to participate and be a part of that. And I know that some of that information will be going out in mailers and whatnot soon. Thanks.
I just want to add, Dr. Amaki, can you add the time for the closing of the survey to that communication as well, please?
Yeah, we got it.
Thank you.
That makes me aware I got some to-dos. I got to sign up for the Spring for Schools. Okay, so we are now at the end of this agenda for a moment. We're going to have a break. The break was slated for 15 minutes. We're a little early, so let's go till 6:05 instead and get a jump on things. And we're going to go into a study session. Is that it?
We're going to the other room.
Yeah, in the other room. Okay. Thank you.